And it's funny because when you're a young kid like I was at 15, you don't really I don't think you notice it maybe as much. But when I really noticed it was when I went back years later and I was coaching the US ski team and my athletes, it was the only time they ever held a downhill World Cup downhill race in South America. It was in Las Linas in Argentina. And, you know, and all the guys, they're coming from summer and, within 12 hours, they're in winter. And of course, they don't dress appropriately, right? So what happens is everyone gets sick right away,
Instantly.
instantly. Yeah, it's like, they're all freezing and they didn't nobody really thought about it, it's just but when you're at that level, you have to be really cognizant of, weather and your environment and what you're stepping into. And yeah, it's always a challenge, and over time you learn these things and it gets better. But it's not easy. It's not easy.
It's not. I'm guessing if you get to the other countries in the transitional months, it might be a little bit easier.
Yes. Yes,
And
for
of
sure.
course, and some people want the other seasons. I have some Italian relatives who don't complain when they are suddenly just getting summer all year when they travel.
Yeah. I mean, growing up in the Midwest of the US, right? I mean, our winters were pretty severe winters. They were cold and snowy, and we were in the Great Lakes region of the US, and that's just from you got to figure from November through February, March, it's winter and it's cold, and most I wouldn't say most, but a lot of people that are older, they all go to Florida. We call them the snowbirds, and they go down there because they don't want to deal with the cold and the snowy weather. My grandfather was a bit of an anomaly. He was one of these guys. He was a really well-known artist, watercolor artist. He never minded it, and even into he lived to be 100, believe it or not. But he felt that living in that environment was healthier. And this man was way ahead of his time. I mean, he was taking cold showers, or he would swim in the lake when it was cold. And he just embraced that, and he said, first of all, I don't believe in retirement because I think it's unhealthy, and I don't need to go down to a warm climate. And he was a little bit of a maverick that way, I guess, is what you could say.
Even the idea of not retiring, whatever retirement really means, that's now associated with the blue zones, any thoughts about longevity. And people are seeing that. But if you look at some people who retired early in the traditional definition of that, I can understand that so much because my grandparents were like that. They retired in their 50s, but they did so much afterwards. And you kind of need that because you need to keep the brain alive and you need to stay connected with the world.
My grandfather was really unique in that sense. Okay, here's a guy that had polio when he was 12, and he went to a clinic in Cleveland, Ohio, for about 9 months, and this was back in the early 1900s, right? So the only methods they had to fix his polio, which they couldn't really fix, right, and they didn't have vaccines back then, was they put him on the rack. Then they try to stretch it, and they would, and all this. There was a lot of painful stuff that was going on, and they couldn't use morphine and things like that on kids, so they did surgery without really any sort of
No,
pain, not painkillers. I mean, it was weird, and he really endured some hard times, but it really drove him, and he used very creative methods. They told him that you're going to be in a wheelchair at 55 and dead soon thereafter, and he just went, no, I'm not going to do that. And he got to a point where he could walk fairly well. Always walked with a limp because one leg was pretty bad. He and his and my grandmother traveled all over the world. He had a stationary bike at home. He rode that stationary bike every single day. Well, I should say 5, 6 days a week for an hour every morning. He must have gone around the world 2 or 3 times, right? We would always have a big celebration when he did. But he just always felt that exercise was paramount. And like I said, he was way ahead of his time. Cold showers. He ate very healthy foods. He didn't he didn't overindulge. He'd like to have a glass of beer or a glass of wine at night, but that was about it. And he lived to be 100 years old. And in contrast, my father, okay, his son, he retired when he was 55, I believe. Okay. And he got prostate cancer when he was 60. And, you know, I think it was like 10 years later, he was gone.
That's
And,
terrible.
and, and, and well, and he didn't live like his father, you know, he, when he quit work, when he sold the business and quit work, he just would fly his airplane a little bit and he'd ski a little bit but he just never had purpose. He never had purpose. And I think there was some of that. He also, he drank more than he maybe should have, and he didn't eat that healthy. And I remember him telling me, I don't need to exercise. I did that when I was in college as an athlete. And that was kind of it. And he just sort of withered away. And yeah.
That's I think the exercise topic is an interesting one, and it's great hearing it from you because you deal with exercise all the time. I had a limiting belief like that, but when I was young, I didn't feel coordinated. When I was young, I wasn't the typical sporty type, but it was so much later on that although yoga isn't a sport, I was able to follow something that was physical in some way. And I really hope that everybody can just find something that works for them. Do you think that some people are more comfortable with some activities more than others?
Yeah, I think so. I'll tell you a funny story. Okay. So I come from a ski family, right? My parents were competitive. Um, and I have two sisters. And when I want to say probably, I would have been about 6 or 7 years old. Okay. My parents wanted to take us all up skiing for the weekend. We'd drive up to Michigan and go skiing. And I didn't want to go. And my sisters, they wanted to go, so they went, And but my parents got tired of leaving me at home with a babysitter. Okay. So my mother was very clever. She hired the biggest, meanest babysitter that she could find. And after 2 weekends of enduring that old bat, I was like, okay, I'm going skiing. I was, but I was the consummate, uncoordinated, klutzy kid. I mean, yeah, I couldn't. My father put me in little league baseball. I couldn't catch a ball to save my life. I couldn't bat. I couldn't throw. I couldn't throw a football or kick a soccer ball. I mean, I was the definition of no athletic ability at all. And and I think and it sort of morphed into this. Well, I was as I was started to get involved in ski racing when I was would have been about 10, I guess. In 10, 11, 12, it was a social thing because I was around a lot of my friends, but I started to get a little annoyed with the fact that they were always coming home with trophies and medals, and I was coming home with zero. So this sort of thing just, eventually I got better. And I had a mentor from the U.S. ski team, a gal who just saw me at a camp and went, "This kid's really struggling. I need to help him out." And she turned the tide for me. She told me what I would need to do if I wanted to be at the podium level versus with everybody else. and she gave me a physical fitness program for the summer and fall months. And I think I was really kind of thrilled that somebody took an interest in me and said, "Hey, you know, you can do great. Just you need to have a little bit of a roadmap." My father was my coach, but he didn't really push us to do any physical activity per se. And that made a difference. After a year, I was a completely different animal. I mean, I was strong, and my coordination sort of my, you know, once my body caught up with itself. But and by the time I was probably in my 16, 17 years old, I was winning almost everything.
Everything.
Yeah, yeah. Now, that was in the sport of ski racing. You know, when if I wanted to go out and play golf or play tennis, it wasn't that great, right? But so I still had some of that. But you know, over time, you know, some people are really blessed with you know a natural coordination and but now over this long span of my life, okay, boy, exercise to me is it's the ticket. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, so many people when they have an ache and pain, aches or pains, they take medication. Okay, I go out and work out, and it's like the best medication you could ever have.
Really does heal and fix things.
Absolutely, movement of any type, and I like to do it early in the morning because you know, after sleeping at night, you get a little stiff, and that's just the way it is. And having a body weight at my age, I don't need to go in the gym anymore. I use body weight exercises, and I'm outside in nature, and I have a little music going, and boy, it takes care of all that. And I've had I don't know 7 surgeries or something. You know, I've had discs taken out of my back. I've had 4 knee surgeries. You know, it's been all this sort of stuff. And I got friends that walk around like they're half dead, and I feel great.
Movement, it makes a giant difference. It's great that you are seeing that at any age and after all these injuries and things. The simple habits make a difference. I can relate to that so much. Someone told me recently that I'm aging backwards. Okay, I'll go with that. And there are things people can do anywhere because I looked at Pilates after yoga, and one thing they both do is doing a simple plank. I was not the type to do something like that, but you could use any floor at home, anything. And so people don't have to be an expert in something. Since you've done so much with movement, for the audience to agree that people don't have to do something complicated to get movement.
No, and you don't need to go out and buy a gym membership. You don't need to go out and buy a bunch of equipment. I literally have I've got like it's not really a yoga mat because it's a little thicker, you know, it's a little softer. And I've got 2 sandbags that are probably I think they're like maybe 6 kilos or something like that. So what is that, 15 pounds maybe, or somewhere around that?
I
Uh,
normally go with kilos, so we can try to help the Americans
yeah,
convert if they need it when listening, or they can Google it.
they can Google it. Yeah. So anyway, I can use it for like, I'll use it for, you know, some types of squats um, and I'll use it for curls and things like that. Or I'll go out and I'll do a farmer walk on a hilly trail, and I'll just carry him with me.
Oh, so the farmer walk, is that simply carrying things?
Just carrying them. Just put them in your hands and carry them. And you know, it's one until you get used to it, you know, it's a challenge, but it's really it's good. And you know, I do body weight because at my age, I don't my joints aren't as elastic as they were when I was younger. And so I don't put that strain on them, but it's a constant movement. So if I go out and typical routine is I'll spend probably 15 minutes getting up onto a trail So I'm warmed up and I'm ready to go. And then I'll have little stations that I dream up on my own. And one will be the first one is always squats, regular squats, and I'll do 100 of them,
100,
100
literally.
squats. Yeah. Now when I started this a couple of years ago, I started out with maybe 30 or 40, and I could probably, if I'm going to do it one of these days, I could probably do 200 of them. Okay, and then I've got three different variations of squats, so I'll do a total of 300 squats, and and then I've got core. I do standing core in between those squat sets, and then I also do lunges. And I'll do normally if I go out if it's lunge day, I'll go out and I'll do 300 lunges, and I'll do them uphill with a slight grade so you don't put any stress on your knee. So
Okay, that's a hint for everybody. Uphill. Is there a way to do that? If someone has a normal floor, is there a way to do these things that will be more gentle on the knees?
yeah, yeah, like I said, with the incline for me, it's because I don't have any cartilage left on my right knee. So for me, I try not to do something that impacts it too much. So with the incline, you've got a little bit of your weight behind you. Um, but it's again, body weight exercises are fantastic. I was with a friend yesterday. We went for a long hike. He's a pilot for FedEx, and he's younger than I am, quite a bit younger than I am, and he's got all these aches and pains, and he's now 57, and he's going to the gym and he's lifting weights, but he's always having problems. And I said, dude, when you hit 50, that's kind of the magic number. You don't need to lift a lot of weights, and just start doing high reps of body weight exercises. And you can't believe how strong you can get. And he says, yeah, because I'm having trouble with push-ups. And I said, here's the key with push-ups. I had to give up on them a long time ago. I had a disease when I was a kid, so my back didn't grow straight. So it's a little harder for me to do push-ups. But I said, I do incline push-ups. You can do them against the wall, but instead of doing 10 or 15, do 50, 50 or 60. You'll get strong as an ox. it's
Incline.
it's
What do you do? Just lean against the wall?
lean against the wall or slightly down just a little bit, and you're just and you do high reps, and every couple of weeks add another 10. You'd be surprised. It's crazy. And if you have, so I've got squat days, I got lunge days, and with some standing core in between there, because your core is you can exercise your core every day. It's just, and people don't realize that you can do that. And then there will be days when it's maybe really miserable outside. I mean, I don't mind going out in any kind of weather. If it's misting a little bit or it's cold, I don't care. It's good to be outside. But I'll do an inside day and I'll do an hour of core.
What do
And
you do for the core?
oh my God, I've got probably half a dozen exercises. Standing core is what I usually start with, because it's a little bit easier when you get out of bed and you're stiff a little bit. So that's what I start with. And then I do some arm curls, and I do some over behind the neck press, with the sandbags. And then I'll get on the floor and I'll do another 7 or 8 variations of floor core. And the cool thing about doing core like this with movement, this kind of movement, is you're actively stretching your muscles. I don't need to stretch as much after I do a session like that. That's crazy. I mean, it's one of the best balms you can put on your body, is doing these movement exercises. And even if you wake up and you're a little bit sore, I mean, in the beginning, yeah, you get a little bit sore. Or if I increase my intensity a little bit, or the reps, Yeah, I'll get a little sore. Go out and move. Soreness will go away. Take Don't use the pills. I mean, it takes a lot for me to reach for the ibuprofen.
Are you saying that a walk will ease the aches that people might have a day after a workout?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Best thing you could do. Go out and move. Don't exercise. Just go out on a trail that maybe has a little bit of elevation and just walk. It's phenomenal what it'll do, and it's hard because the common reaction for people is when they wake up in the morning and they have an ache. I gotta go. They'll put some ibuprofen in their bodies, and they don't need to do that. Go out for a walk.
And they
Besides,
might
you get the sun, you get it's just healthier. It's just
it
healthier.
is. I'm guessing some people would be using the pills to replace those other things as well. So they might not even be adding the pills onto the good things. They might be just only popping a pill and then sitting on a couch instead of getting out there into the world. Do you think
Right.
so?
Yeah, and listen, I, I don't want to be preaching the fact that I'm something special, that I've been doing this for so many years that it's easy. Nothing's easy, but you have to kind of program your mind to do hard things because as time goes on, your body just isn't kind to itself. It starts to deteriorate. That's life. And but you can overcome that. um it was interesting because when my wife and I moved to Europe a couple of years ago, we ended up in Portugal because it was the easiest place to get residency right away. And we were in the Algarve where it's nice and warm and it was on the seaside. So it was an interesting experience. And I really enjoyed some of the time down there because getting out in the morning and doing stuff and then going for a swim in the ocean where it's cold was great. And that's another topic all in itself. But these types of things just I think the real change for me was one night I sat down and watched Netflix, and there was a documentary on that, or actually it was a movie on the Purdue Pharma, that had the OxyContin, the heavy duty people were taking this narcotic to eliminate pain, but they became so addicted to it. And I thought, why? I came from a sport that probably is one of the more brutal sports on the planet. I mean, when you crash skiing, it's not always that pleasant, right? So we're out skiing and competing in inclement conditions where it's really cold or it's super icy, and it's not an easy sport. I mean, it's tough. And I'm thinking, why are these people, why are they popping a pill and then sitting on the couch, and but then they become addicted.
And
So
this is so deep because this is bigger than the particular pill they are turning to. It seems like people don't know how to accept pain and discomfort.
they don't. So I'm writing a book about it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I said, you know what, I got to write a book because this makes no sense to me. So I've done a lot of research. I've got it now. I'm about halfway through most of the major edits, and I'm doing I got to get it to a copywriter. I'm taking those steps. It will be published this year, but I felt it was really important, and I dig into what our ancestors, going back to the Viking days, what they did for pain, and try to educate people on you know the topic of pain, because I don't think people really understand it. And it wasn't very long after watching that film on Netflix that there was a friend of ours in another town in Portugal, and I had coffee with him one day, and I was explaining that I saw this thing, and he goes, "Oh my God." He said, "I'm a victim of that." He said, "I got hooked on OxyContin." And he said, "Let me tell you something. The best day on OxyContin is the first day. After that, it goes downhill." He said, "I got to the point where I was almost stupid." He said, I couldn't drive my car, I couldn't remember things, and he said, "I was a mess." And I had to get some rehab to get out of it. Now, he was one of the lucky ones. If he would have continued on that, he would have ended up dead like so many, Americans have on taking that drug.
Ed. So, does it mess with the brain and also the body? Do you know what it's doing to people?
Yeah, it's a really, really powerful narcotic that just eliminates pain, but it's so highly addictive. I mean, it's like it was easier than people getting hooked on heroin or crack or anything like that. I mean, it's awful. I mean, it's really bad. I mean, they would find uh, a husband and a wife sitting in a car dead because they eventually just gone. Yeah,
That's
terrible.
that's so sad.
Yeah.
And it's for the pain. I'm wondering how these people even got into so much pain because chances are that some of these aches are from not doing the movement to begin with. I can tell you that I was cutting back on my exercises when I couldn't get to a gym for a couple of weeks. And I know you were saying that we can do things at home. I put off getting the right mat. I think if there's one thing you need to get, everybody needs a decent mat. But I can feel it so much. I can feel just a line across my back from the aches of not doing the movements I was doing a couple of weeks ago. And if some people are going months or years without doing these movements that we all need, then it would be wrecking them.
If you take the average, I'll take the average guy, right? He maybe he works at a place where he has to lift some heavy things periodically. Maybe it's a warehouse or a building supply place or something like that, and he tweaks his back. Okay, first thing you do when he gets home, he reaches for the pill bottle, and of course it's a compounding thing, right? If you exercise consistently, you become strong enough to be able to do those simple things and not get hurt. Now, that's not always the case because I can go and lift something, although I've learned over time when you lift with your legs, you don't lift with your arms and just hinge at the waist. But if you're physically strong enough, and so many people aren't, and it's really a problem in the US because so many people are overweight. They have let themselves go, and when you do that, your whole body becomes out of balance. If you've got a big stomach in front of you, you're out of balance, and it puts more strain on your back. But by keeping yourself active and healthy, you can overcome a lot of stuff. And if I really tweak something, I won't hesitate to take an ibuprofen, but I'll only take it once, and that's it.
I'll tell you, there's so much there, and I wanted to mention the importance of food because, of course, if someone eats all the wrong things all day, then it would be too difficult to run that off. Of course, that's a part of it. But you mentioned the pain relief again, and I was so keen to, I don't know if I've given this anecdote in a previous recording, but when I had that tibial plateau fracture years ago, 2017, I was in the hospital bed and I didn't understand how things work. And the staff told me so there was a button for some sort of pain relief. I don't even know what was going through my system, but the staff just said, whenever I am feeling pain, press that button. I kept pressing it until I vomited because I was just doing what I was told. Then I just didn't take that. The tramadol gave me hives. They would appear in a patch on my arm and then vanish and then a patch on another spot. That was so weird to have hives just popping up and vanishing and popping up again. And so I just skipped those things and just coped. We can just cope without those things. But One thing I assume other people are doing that I did there is I just mindlessly did what I was told until people realized, oh, okay, this is having this effect. And by that point, we are then recovering from all those side effects.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, it's and there are societal differences too. And I don't know enough about Australia and where you guys are. It's like one of the places that I want to go, and I have never been yet. And I'll get there, but it's in the U.S. you can walk into a gas station, convenience store, and you can buy a bottle of 500 pills. Okay, I mean that's
Anywhere.
normal. Hey, anywhere. Yeah, it's crazy.
500. What is anyone doing with 500 pills?
They buy a big bottle. That it's over excessive, and it's marketing and it's everything else, right? And in Europe, it's completely different. If you want something for pain relief, it's usually ibuprofen, and you can buy it, but you can't buy it in a gas station. You can't buy it in a convenience store. You can't buy it in a grocery store. You can only buy it in an apotheke, right? A pharmacy. It's the only place you can buy it. And it might be normally a package will you can get 10 pills in a box, or you can get maybe 20, but you don't get more than that,
We
which is
have that. Sorry for diving in. We have that sort of quantity, but it is often available at the supermarkets nearly anywhere.
yeah, no, and over here in Europe you can't do that. And they keep, and of course, but the society here, everyone's out walking or biking or running or doing something. They're always active. And it doesn't matter. We saw a woman this winter that had to be in her late 80s. She had a walker with wheels, and she was pushing it along the trail with some slushy snow below her. And I'm like, all right, that's fantastic. You know, they just they don't mind. You go up hiking here, and you see people that are they're in their 80s and 90s that are out there when they've got their sticks with them, and they're always moving. So it's a societal thing, and going back to what you were saying with food. Oh, the diet is so important. If you're eating more sugary type foods and processed foods, you will have more joint pain. I mean, they've proven that. That's a you try to eat really healthy. We tried to do intermittent fasting back in the States. We couldn't do it. You don't have enough quality food unless you went to Whole Foods every week to get your groceries. And of course, the again, it's a societal thing. People buy groceries for a week. Well, you can do that because most of that stuff has preservatives in it. It'll last a week. Over here, everyone goes to the grocery store almost every day or every 2 days to buy fresh products or fresh produce anyway. So we noticed when we got to Portugal, we could exist on two meals a day. We would eat at noon, and we would eat at 7 o'clock at night. That was it. And because the quality of food, and we shopped every other day or every day if we had to go, and we go to the farmer's market or wherever, and you went to the butcher to get your meat, and it's crazy. The simple staple of life, bread, for example, in America, loaded with sugar. Okay, to get bread like we get here, um, it was so expensive in the States. So I can buy a really nice loaf of fresh sourdough bread, okay, and I can pay €1.99, €1 99. Yeah. And when we were in Michigan in the US, that same loaf of bread was $10 US.
I think it's like that here a lot. And it's interesting you bring that up. If I was going to go to a sourdough bakery somewhere that makes the bread properly, I would say it would become 10 to 12, maybe 8 to 12 Australian. So what's the American dollar? I'm going to guess off the top of my head 1.5 times that. Just wild guess. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
probably. I can actually look it up, but I know what you're saying. I wonder if I have okay. So it's AUD, right? I think that's what they go by. Would be okay. Australian dollar, Australian dollar would be 0.72, not quite a US dollar, right? 72 cents,
Right.
just a little bit
So
lower.
if I tell the internet, I'm just checking convert a, let's call it 12 AUD to USD. So that's complicating this.
12 would be $8.80.
Pretty much.
860. Yeah. Yeah.
So basically, for the Americans listening, a good loaf of bread over here is around what they would call $8. But if you're saying it was around the $10 mark in America, then it's pretty similar. And seriously, then looking at the bread in the supermarkets, I like how I was watching the guy who does the Blue Zones, Dan Butner, I think his name is, and at some point, he got to the bread and just squished it up in his hand and said, "If you can do that, then it's not decent bread." I get so worried. But even the cheap bread is not so cheap here now in terms of price because everything is becoming expensive. But I find that I just can't even eat that. I'll just skip it until I can get real bread. But if you are going to the places that don't have options, then that's all there is. And it's not the same. Sourdough is so different.
Sourdough is really different. And we couldn't, in Portugal, we couldn't get kind of bread we really wanted to get, right? I mean, I'm a little spoiled because I used to spend more time in Central Europe and, between Italy, Austria, Germany, Switzerland. I mean, you get France, you get phenomenal breads. Um, so I started making our own bread. And
Gotcha.
that was really simple. It wasn't sourdough because I didn't get into the whole sourdough starter and all that stuff, but to be able to make a fresh loaf of bread every 2 days was really economical, and it was kind of fun actually, you know. Um, but it's those simple things, and you consume fruits and the vegetables and eggs. Eggs are God, what we buy eggs here in Germany for is, you pay in the States $8 or $9 for a carton of eggs. I mean, it's gotten
Really?
so expensive. Yeah. Yeah. The US is really out of control right now. I mean, obviously, with
Politics.
the whole political thing is just an absolute disaster. And my two of my sisters, they've been here, they visited, and they couldn't believe how inexpensive the food was. Um, my sister the other day wrote me. She said I bought a small bag of groceries, and she lives in Maine, and it was $110 US. Small bag of groceries. I can go here to the Lidl, and I can buy the freshest fruits at all. This stuff all comes up from Spain and Italy, and I bought a big bag of groceries, and it might have been 30 euros.
That's better. And people need to get to the basics. I will add again that I don't eat eggs, but just hearing that price, that really stunned me because here in Australia, we are hearing that there are war events going on. The thing we kept hearing about was the fuel prices. So Americans will say gas, we say petrol, whatever you call it. That was becoming the big fear, and people were doing the joke memes to emotionally cope, all of that. But food is an interesting one because I think that's creeping up slowly, or at least even if other things are chewing into the budget for everybody, I believe people always forget how affordable food can be because it sounds like even the basics are out of control in America. But I'll tell you, the very simple meal, for example, that I had tonight, because if we're talking about sourdough, I impressed myself. I impressed myself. I I fried up finely chopped onion and some fresh tomato and some brown lentils and tossed in some olive oil and taco seasoning. I can tell you those simple ingredients. I used half of the onion, I used half of the tomato. This is barely any food. At least over here, you can get a can of lentils for $1. I don't know what it's like in America now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's seriously enough food for 2 dinners.
Mhm.
And it was so simple. I think people don't realize how simple food is. People think they need, I think the ingredients list has messed everything up because people are looking for particular products that might have had added nutrients, something is processed and then, or people are checking the grams of the protein, all that stuff, instead of just checking, is this real food? I hope that everywhere in the world, people can at least go and get the simple things like potatoes, whatever, and just at least eat something real to start.
Remember during COVID, okay? Um, I was always blown away by going into the grocery store and seeing all these aisles with boxed and canned foods that were completely empty. In addition to the toilet paper aisle was completely empty, right? That one still baffles me. It's like, okay, something's weird about that, but during things like that, they all rush to buy toilet paper. Okay, whatever.
Yes.
But anyway, if you continue on and you get to the produce area, it's completely full. And they were even throwing that stuff out. People, oh, we're going to be stuck at home, so we're just going to make boxed macaroni and cheese, or we're going to do canned or jar of pasta sauce, right? And that's what we'll eat that. And it's like, no, you don't need to do that. Life is food is simple, and you can do things that are really cool. When my kids were young, they loved pasta, right? But I wasn't going to give them the spaghettios or whatever they have in the can, right? I said, there's no way I'm going to do that. You can buy. Oh, I really got into it big time. So I would buy Roma tomatoes. I would blanch them. Okay, peel the skin off and take the seeds out, and then I would press them, and that I would make my sauce that way. Well, I don't really need to do that anymore because here, especially being so close to Italy, you can buy a box of the crushed tomatoes that don't have the seeds and all that sort of stuff in it, and it's pretty similar. And then it's just some garlic and some olive oil first. Pour the tomatoes in there, and I add salt and pepper, and I use a like a pink Himalayan salt, and maybe some Italian herbs. That's it. Then you throw the pasta in the water, and you got a phenomenal, healthy, and we can get 2 days out of when I make a batch of pasta. Um, we use a big, like a porcelain, they call it a Dutch oven, I guess, or a crock. It's like a crock,
Hot.
and with a lid on it. And all you have to do is slice up some potatoes, some carrots, onions, celery, plop a chicken in there, put some we use just curry. We cover it in olive oil, and then we put some curry powder, some brown sugar, a little salt and pepper, and you've got a phenomenal meal. Okay, you've got your chicken, which is great, and you've got your vegetables, and then I go and I strip the chicken down. Either my wife or I will strip the chicken down, add some bouillon to it, some of the water in a bouillon cube, and we have chicken soup for 2 more days. And you're eating pure food. It's healthy. I mean, I have a little bit of a thing for dark chocolate, but it's the lesser of a lot of the chocolate evils. But
Then
those kinds of things, they're affordable if you do it this way, but people inherently, I think, are lazy.
to some extent, laziness is a part of it. And I will clarify, I also, so I don't eat dairy, eggs, or meat, but I think if everybody starts with real food, it's a great start. And I was reminiscing today that I am just bursting to roast some potatoes. And again, how difficult is it to just, especially the tiny ones, you barely have to cut them, make sure it's clean enough, throw it in an oven. You don't have to do anything. But you mentioned the laziness. I wanted to comment on how people sometimes do end up with busy lives. And although there are ways with technology to make our time more efficient, things happen, people have families, work, things get busy. But I've been looking in different areas. So I'm at the coast, but I'm close enough to Sydney. And when I first started exploring Sydney again, I thought every place has pastries. It was pastries at all the coffee places. And I was trying to figure out, okay, where is the quick, healthy food? I can tell you it's the unexpected places. If I go to the nice coffee places, it's perhaps a big refined white bread with something in it, whatever. There'll be the places that are doing the burgers that are extra oily, whatever. But the supermarket will have a salad with some falafels in it. It's simple. I A few times I went to the supermarket when they had some clearance things at the end of the day and got the simple salads then. So you look for the basics. I keep my eye out for a an avocado sushi roll. It's a few ingredients, I know what's in it, and I can eat that on the go. I passionately believe people need to at least look for the real food, even if they are getting busy.
Absolutely. And it just takes a little bit more effort. It doesn't take a lot. It takes a little bit more effort. It's like, I mean, it goes into a little bit off topic, but it's a little bit like, you're home with the kids, right? And we would trade off cooking. Okay, I would cook some nights. My wife would cook some nights. We take the kids out and do something active. And today there's too much of this. Give them this and keep them occupied, right? Really, that's not helping anybody. And so yeah, I mean it's just keeping I know people with two people working, it's really a challenge, right? And they come home from work and they're tired. I understand that. I've been there, done that before. Um, but it you just it's going back to what I said. Do hard things. You got to dig a little bit deep. Don't let that dictate your life. Still you have to prepare good food and good meals, and then after dinner go for a nice walk, and then you'll sleep much better at night. That's kind of it.
I think the do hard things wisdom, that's going to encourage people who don't have someone who can carry the load with them because you two are such a team. And I hope that all couples can be a team and just alternate with duties, things like that. That makes a difference. And I I feel excited to know that I won't always be just juggling everything alone. But to those people who are juggling everything because either they are alone or their other person just isn't doing the things, or maybe they are both working, this is a simple fact of life of things will be difficult. We just have to do it. And you are coming from, of course, a professional background where you help people to do great sport as well and reach goals. So we've barely even talked about the human charger yet, so we'll get to that in a second. But every topic was just golden. I forgot just how diverse this is. But absolutely, but you need to just find the bravery. And it's great that you're saying that. It's one of those moments when a podcast guest tells me what I need to hear, because I think we also need to do the things that feel impossible. Everybody had something that felt like the limit at some point. But I'll tell you, in terms of doing hard things, okay, because a pivot is better late than never. I have I don't know if anyone else uses the human charger for ears popping, but I just found that maybe half of it is just putting those little earphone rubber things in. For those who haven't seen it, it's just like if you get earphones to listen to music and it has the rubber things on that. I don't know if that's contributing to it or also the light, but just popping those on when my ears are going weird on a long trip, it has seriously made a difference.
I listen, this device is probably one of the crazier things. And to lead into that a little bit, um, doing hard things is something that I talk to athletes about, right? But you have you have the elite athletes that are up here, and you've got the ones that are here that want to be up here, right? And that's always the tough one because you get kids that are in our sport of ski racing, and I think it's pretty similar with other sports too. You get these kids that are in that 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, probably the 16 to 20, more into the probably 19, 20 years old. They've been in it long enough. They want to get to the top. They want to do this. They plateau because they do not understand the value of doing hard things. So what I do is I try to reframe it for them. And there's a lot of keys here, but and I won't go into all of them. That's for maybe another topic or another discussion. But you know, I try to frame it like this. Your goal should be a one percenter. And this goes across the board for everybody. If you make it a goal to be a one percenter, that means you're special. You're better than 99% of all people on the planet. Just be a one percenter. Do those extra things. Do the hard things, and it's get up every day and it's simple stuff. When you get out of bed, you make your bed. Make it the best that you can make it. Do whatever you need to do, get your clothes on, whatever, and hydrate. Drink, you know, 2 20-ounce glasses of water, have a little fruit, and then get out the door and walk around the neighborhood. If it's only as simple as a 15 to 20-minute walk around the neighborhood, you've done you have become a one percenter because you're doing what most people will never ever do in their life. You're awake, you've got some movement, some of those aches and pains will go away, have a little bit of a breakfast, then you go to work, you're ready to go, you're tuned up. And so I'm always looking for those things to help people become a one percenter. And with that human charger, that's exactly when I saw the thing, I didn't know really anything about it. Okay. And I'm a little bit embarrassed because as an elite coach, um, maybe I should have paid more attention to the body's circadian rhythm. I mean, God knows we fly all over the world, right? And we suffer jet lag and we so we had this I still laugh about this because okay, I've got my downhill ski racers back in the 80s. Okay, this is a long time ago. And we're flying to Europe and we're oh God, driving to your destination after you've flown across the pond, you're jet lagged to the hilt. And yet I got to make sure these guys get to their destination. And we had a guy by the name of Dietrich Mateschitz. I don't know if that name rings a bell. Okay. He's the founder of Red Bull.
Nice.
Okay. So Dietrich became a good friend. Dietrich, he was a great guy. He loved us. And we would get cases of Red Bull. And, and that Red Bull was what we used to keep ourselves bright eyed and bushy tailed, as they would say. And it never dawned on me, right, that wow, this is a really cool product because I would bring cans of it home to the U.S. and my buddies would be like, "Oh, you got to bring more of this back to the States." They didn't go into the U.S. till the '90s, right? And I never thought to go to Dietrich and say, "Hey, can I know a distributor back there that would love this stuff. Can I buy it and import it?" Never thought about it, right? But that's all we had. That's all we knew. You'd suffer for 3, 4 days. You'd get over your jet lag and then you'd be fine. But it has a dramatic impact on you physically, emotionally, mentally. And but that's a different era. And so when we found the HumanCharger, which is this simple little headset, right? Um, I didn't really know much about seasonal depression. My wife knew about it because she does suffer from seasonal depression. I'm lucky, I guess. I'm a kind of a ready, set, go guy when I get up in the morning, but we just got used to that. And I'm not much of a, even though I like to have a can of Red Bull once in a while. I know it's an energy drink and they're not that great for you, right? There's too much sugars in them, and they're kids are consuming way too many of them today. But I didn't know much about light and how it would impact our biological clock, right? Our internal clock. So we started to do the look into the science of the HumanCharger, and found that it was developed in Finland by a scientist and an engineer from Nokia, the phone company. And it was at a time when Nokia wasn't doing very well because Apple had come out with the iPhone. Um, so these guys broke off, and because Finland is obviously way northern latitude and dark winters, they had a lot of people that were suffering from seasonal depression. And the only thing that they had at the time was a lamp. You'd stare into this lamp for an hour. They
This
wanted
horror.
to come, yeah, and you have to be close, and you have to stare at it for an hour because you can't you can't get anything more than that. But not many people have the time to do that, or like staring at a light. 'Cause I don't think it's great for your eyes anyway. But that's the way that light goes through your optic nerve, triggers the opsins, the proteins that affect your hypothalamus that deliver the cortisol to wake you up in the morning, and then obviously melatonin kicks in the evening when it gets dark. So, we just, you know, that's all that people knew. And these guys broke off and they did some experiments, and they found, number one, that light would penetrate a skull. And they looked at the ear canal because the ear drum is translucent and the bone structure around the ear is very thin. So they started doing therapy, what they call transcranial light therapy, and they would use, a device like this that had 10,000 lux, which is the same lux as a sad lamp, and they
And
just
by
put
the
them in the
way,
ears.
so for those who can see the video, if you switch off the light and people can see the actual ear part that goes in your ear, people will see it's seriously, it's that simple. It looks like earphones. So that's significant because it's that simple. I can tell you, I was at a place where I was getting support and being with people, and I just sat on a couch and paused after a bit of coffee, stopped my coffee for a moment, just popped the headset on. It's what, 12 minutes? Does it
12
stay on?
minutes.
12
Yeah.
minutes out of
Mhm.
the day, not that much time. You just sit there. It's so lightweight. It's so much thinner and compact than, people go around with the big headphones. It's not even like that. It's so small. You just pop that in.
Yeah, so the original version was actually more like an iPod. It had a little handheld device, and it had the cables that went up to the earbuds. These are called earbuds, and they're just little LED lights in there that provide, 10,000 lux of a full spectrum, UV free, which is really important because, yeah, people are going to say, well, I can go out and I can look at the sun and I can, yeah, sure, you can do that and you should do that, but you got to be careful of that because there's all the other things that we know about with sun today. So this is a really, really, really safe, quick, and efficient way that when you get up in the morning, you can throw this device. It's like the old JVC Bluetooth headphones, that you just stick around your neck, and you click the button once, you've got the light, you pop them in, look at your clock. Okay, it's 11:06, so 12 minutes from there at 11:18, I'm able to it'll just automatically shut off. And you just pull it out and you go, "Oh, it's off now." Okay,
You
then
put it
you take
around your neck. I was
yeah,
putting that part on my head like a headband. Sorry, that looked weird the way I gestured that, but I guess you can do either, but around the neck is even easier.
yeah, around the neck is probably the simplest. Um, and no, it's really clever. It's so simple to use, and so the more we kind of got into the thing, my wife was like, God, I gotta try this thing because I'm not very good about getting up in the morning. I always struggle to get up in the morning, and so she was the first one that started using it, and within a week she was like, I've never been able to get up regular in the morning. So it sort of reset. She was working at a retail store that was more of an in a basement, so she didn't get a lot of natural light. So this really helped her a ton. Um, and then the more I dug into it, I'm thinking, you know, God, I know what I felt like on a really nice sunny day at a ski race, right? Everyone's happy, sun's bright, you can see everything's clear, and it's really nice. But you get a day that's cloudy and it's snowing and it's gray, and you just don't wake up with that same feeling, right? And I'm thinking, wow, that could really help. Because I'm a little bit odd. I'm a ready, set, go guy. I get up in the morning, go, and I'm fine. But when I noticed it was, when we were talking about my exercise routine, okay, that's when I noticed this thing the most, because when I used it, I was really sharp. My focus was better, because I do some mental exercises as well. I've got music going. I've got, I've got some counting things that I'm doing. I've got visual images. I do all this sort of stuff. And if I don't use it, I'm a little bit drifting. I drift a bit. If I use it, I'm sharp. I'm like tunnel vision. That's where I notice it. So I thought, God, well, my athletes, this could be great. So I got it out to some of the athletes that, I'm not actively coaching the athletes anymore on the national team, but I got it out to some of the national team athletes, and they know the biggest thing was jet lag. That was huge. That's a game changer that I wish we would have had years ago, because with jet lag, okay, and to give you a little bit of a background, the circadian rhythm, okay, our body's biological clock. I like to say that we are as a human being, we're running 21st century software on a 1,000-year-old operating system. Okay,
In what
our
way?
our bodies haven't evolved enough to be able to overcome jet travel across 6 time zones.
Right, we haven't evolved to flick between time zones.
Right? Yeah, you can't. We have gotten better over time. I mean, if over the last 100, 200 years, you can look back and go, yeah, we've really evolved as human beings, but not enough to overcome that, because jet travel's only been around for 40, 50 years. And you arrive, and there's no way you can just arrive in feeling great. So what the human charger does is that when you arrive at a destination, so if I'm flying from the US to Europe, I arrive in the morning. I use it at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I use it every 2 hours after that for 2 days. So
Okay.
I use it at 8, 10, 12, 2, and maybe even 4 p.m. And all it's doing is resetting my circadian rhythm every 2 hours. So I don't feel that groggy, sluggish feeling. Okay. And then I'll sleep really good the first night, which is always a little iffy. And then second day, I do the same thing: 8, 10, 12, 2, and 4. And then you're normal,
And
perfectly
that
normal.
that answers the question that I emailed to you, because I found myself using the device twice. I found my ears were popping, and then a few hours later, I felt so stressed maybe it's partly the seasonal change and life, anything, and I just pop this in, and then it just got me away from all of that blur. You said that you get some alertness from it. I sensed that as well. So even doing it twice, I was wondering, is this fine? But you do it every couple of hours when you need to.
Well, for jet lag especially, but everyone's a little bit different, right? My wife will use it in the afternoon instead of an espresso or something like that, because you with this you don't have a caffeine crash, right? You can go get your coffee in the afternoon and you'll have a good spike for an hour or so, and then all of a sudden it's like I'm back to my normal sluggish feeling. I've got coaches that are using it. Okay, that after a long day of training, everyone jumps in the van, they drive back to their hometown or their base, and it might be an hour drive, hour and a half, because they like to go to a lot of different ski areas around Europe. And and I said, instead of stopping for a coffee, pop that thing in. This coach calls me and he goes, my God, this is weird. He said, I'll put that thing on and 15, 20 minutes later, I'm wide awake. I'm not dozing off again in the afternoon. So and he tried it on his the first time in the fall season. They went from Germany up to Norway, and it was like 30 hours. And he was dying. He said those trips are long, but he said with the HumanCharger it was fantastic. He said I'd used it whenever I needed it, and it was great. And I slept well and such and so forth. So for athletics, um, the scientist and the engineer did some studies at the University of Finland, and they did them with the Finnish pro hockey teams. And they found that because in an arena, like it would be for basketball, volleyball, hockey, the overhead light is only about 1200 to 1500 lux. So it's not very, which is about the amount of light you get on a cloudy day. On a sunny day, if you look at a light chart, a sunny day can be upwards of 75 to 100,000 lux, which is bright. And you get that you just feel different on a sunny, bright, sunny day, right? So they did these studies and they found that the hockey players, their psychomotor speed, which is what we call reaction time, was sped up. And for athletes, I go back to that 1% thing again. Okay, so many sports, not so much the team sports, but the individual sports, somebody will win by point zero 0.01. It's nothing. That's a pinky finger or something. I mean, that's crazy. And if you had something that was holistic, wasn't a drug, that wasn't something that would show up in doping control, you're going to have an advantage. It's just the way it is.
It's a natural solution, and this is going to be so relevant to anyone who is getting into a winter renowned. For those who are not in Australia or on the other side of the world, winter will arrive when it arrives, so it's still relevant anyway. And and like I said earlier, the difference is so significant because say someone is doing a 9 to 5. Back in the summertime, someone might have had daylight and some sun and at least perhaps getting some brightness until what, 7, maybe 8 at night. And there's a good few hours. And so for those who do have those standard 9 to 5s, there's literally less time in the day to get that light. So that will help everybody to just get that alertness. But even the circadian rhythm, although it's more dramatic when you have a long flight, I can see so many applications to this because over here, look, we have daylight savings where the clock changes by an hour, and some people are not affected by it, but some are just totally thrown. For me, I have a very kind social group online that's based in America. I don't have it, I'm in it. And because of their version of daylight saving and mine, I went from it being 7 a.m. to 5 a.m., and that's a big leap. So I'm thinking, whoa, in this day and age, so many people have calls with people in any part of the world for work, things like that. And then you do have to be really switched on at different times. So this is going to really help people because even we've all heard someone out there is saying, I'm not a morning person. You're either a morning person or you're not. But it sounds like this could help people to just get more alert and get on with the day sooner.
It will. It's I mean, my wife has proved it, and, you know, tens of thousands of other people have proven it as well, and, we're humans, we're all different, right? Some people it works fantastic, some people it works great, some people maybe not as much, you know? I found a different way that it sort of helps me, but for the average person, and it's across the spectrum. I mean, we've talked about jet lag. There's the other jet lag, the social jet lag, which are shift workers. Those are the people that are working at night. Okay. And again, I go back to back in time where, we didn't have such a fast paced world and people just operated. We didn't have mobile phones and computers and all that sort of stuff, right? Everyone sort of followed a 9 to 5 schedule and whatever. You didn't have that many people working at night. But now you've got warehouses and you've got data centers and you've got financial trading houses, and it used to be where the stock market was during the day. Now you got night traders. We ran into one this winter. One of these athletes that uses the product, his father is a night trader in Boston, and he goes to work at 9 o'clock at night and works till
Seriously.
5 in the morning. Yeah,
Gosh, I
yeah.
can't imagine.
No, it's crazy. And he says, I know it's unhealthy for me. He's We finally were able to reconnect again, and I sent him one, and I said, try it. I wanted to see what you guys, and we have a protocol designed for that. Okay. If you have people that have jet lag, and I don't know if did I send you our jet lag protocol?
You sent that. I looked at the emails before recording and you sent that in a PDF. Is that bundled with the product? Or if you want me to simply put it on the podcast website, I can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I would. I mean, it's eventually what I'd really like to see is to have an app that people can just look at their phone and, you know, and figure it out from there.
I can make
I'm
an app.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a new company called Base 44, okay? And they'll design an app for you. I mean, they can do it quickly and easily and fairly affordable, the kind of money I want
Right.
to spend on it right now.
These days, Claude Code can make an app. So I started small. I'm revealing my secrets on the podcast here. So look, Claude Code, I don't know if you've used Claude, but it will tell you how to. So I wanted to gradually get off my Squarespace subscriptions. I I pay so much money every year for my websites, and so my main Melanie website, I told Claude Code, I grabbed screenshots of the old site and I told it I want it to look like this. Now the coding, it looks like those old-fashioned. Look, I'm so not technical. If you remember the olden days when computers had just a black window with all this text on it, and it's the from scratch stuff, I'll tell it, this is what I need you to do. And then it will tell me, okay, paste this code into this thing. I just paste it in, and then it has made the site. And I'll have a conversation with the robot and I'll say, look, did you realize that the menu is working on the MacBook, but not on my phone? And it said, oh, that's because it's not doing this thing for the mobile version. And so you need to paste this in. And it's your own personal nerd at a drop of a hat. And it can do that for apps as well. So if y'all want to chat, I feel like I haven't given you all enough favors, but it's like, I think that people need this information. And, I'm trying to get more info into the members platform for the podcast as well. But this device and the jet lag, People need to have access to these things. And in terms of access, I was going to mention, from what I remember, the device isn't expensive either, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, in the US, we sell it for 179 US dollars. And this thing, it's about as simple as you can get. It's got a lithium ion battery in there that will, I don't know what you've found, but normally if I use it once a day, it'll last almost a month before I need to recharge it again. And you just plug it into any USB-C and it's charged up. People are out there with these devices. They've had the HumanCharger for 6, 7 years. It's, outside of maybe, you can lose a earbud periodically, and we do have replacements for that. So people can, obviously you can get replacements, but it's pretty simple. The original one that I was telling you about that was more like an iPod, it did have music. Okay.
Nice.
But the problem is that when you only need it for 12 minutes, okay, it's kind of an expensive upgrade because everyone has their own music choices and their own AirPods, or, I use the Meta glasses, which has amazing sound.
Really?
Oh my God. Best thing I think I've ever had. My wife bought me a pair year and a half ago. And honestly, well, and I use it as a teaching tool too, because if I'm working with an athlete or something, it has 4K video in it as well. So I can film them, I can ski behind them and I can film them and then I can critique them later, which is fantastic. But they have speakers in the bows, right? And it just envelops your head in music. Yet I can still hear the birds. I can still hear traffic. I don't have something that's going to fall out of my ear. And I mean, one of the best technological pieces I've ever had in my life. It's pretty amazing. Now, in some places they're outlawed because you got those whack jobs out there that'll use the camera to photograph stuff they shouldn't be photographing.
And I'm guessing people wouldn't know when someone is taking a photo.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why they've been banned in some places. And it's like, but when it comes to, and I originally thought this would be a phenomenal Apple product, and apparently they are coming out with something like that. But it ended up coming out of Meta and with Ray-Ban, and it's really kind of a game changer. But I digressed here. So in order to do it with music, they would have had to you've got to add the speakers, you've got to add the Bluetooth, which has, oh God, I think the licensing, every year you got to license Bluetooth, right? So it's
Really?
$15,000 or something crazy. And so they didn't want to pay that. They didn't think for 12 minutes, keep it simple as possible. So, um, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, oh, kind of in our microscopic world, I mean, it's our world is complicated, and we're running at a high pace all the time. To have something that just gives you a little bit of an extra edge, whether it's athletics, whether it's somebody working the night shifts, and that works the same as jet lag, right? Because it will reset your circadian rhythm the first couple nights. So that's what I told, Neil at the Night Trader. I said, just use it the first couple nights and it'll reset your rhythm to night. And then on the weekends, you go back to using it during the day and it resets your rhythm for the day. So it's pretty simple for that. But we have not, and because Europe is so close, you're only crossing a time zone or two. Jet lag wasn't a big factor, but from the US or even Asia and Australia, those are long flights, and they're hard on the body. I mean, we have a there he's not he might be a night trader as well, but there was a gentleman that he was going from LA to Manila, and he was working in the Philippines for a week, and he said, I got to work at night. And he bought one for his boss at Christmas, and the boss loved it because he was flying back and forth from LA to Taipei. And then he said, "I've never seen a product like this." He said, "This is it's fantastic. It just keeps me completely normal, and for the average traveler, it's really a game changer." But we've really pushed the jet lag thing because we have not found anybody yet that has said it didn't work for jet lag.
Wow.
Nothing.
So for everybody, it works.
Yeah, because light is the only thing that can reset your circadian rhythm.
That's significant. And I want to really acknowledge here that although this is technology, it's a fancy device, you are still being holistic. And I actually like that for most of the conversation, we talked about the essential habits, and we'll wind up in a moment. It's what you could call common sense. And this is simply adding to that to say when the world is derailing us from those common sense things and the basics, when something is getting in the way, like travel or odd work hours, when the modern world isn't letting us get back to what we were built for, this thing is helping in a very natural way.
It's really important. I can't emphasize enough the holistic side of it. Whether it's the average person who doesn't want to be on medication, I mean, there are a lot of people that. I'll give you a good example. Okay, in the athletic side, Iga Swiatek, Polish tennis player, right? She's number 3 in the world, one of the best tennis players, and it was probably year and a half ago. She took some melatonin. Okay, melatonin. A lot of people take melatonin, right, to get to sleep at night. It was tainted, so she went to a tournament. You got to pee in the cup, and she got flagged by doping control, and of course, then she has to hire a bank of attorneys to go fight the WADA, the World Anti-Doping Association, because they wanted to suspend her for a simple product like melatonin that was tainted somehow. Maybe it was made in a pharmaceutical manufacturing facility that had another product that was banned by the Anti-Doping Association. That's a huge hiccup. Then of course she has to deal with the fallout of, oh, is she doping? Is she taking stuff that she shouldn't be taking? And it traced it back to this melatonin.
The
Simple.
image, there are so many
Oh,
costs to that.
terrible, terrible. Okay, here's another one: jet lag. When I went back to the women's U.S. ski team in 2014, and I was coaching the ladies tech team, which was Michaela Schifrin, the best ski racer in the world. We are in Copper Mountain, Colorado in November, and the first race of the year is usually the third weekend in November in Levi, Finland. Okay, and Levi is north of the Arctic Circle, so it's dark. By that time, it's dark. I mean, the sun comes up at about 10, cruises along the horizon, and it drops at about 2. So it's dark and it's cold, and it's typical Finland, right? So the head coach, I worked under the head coach. He wanted to leave 3 days before, and I said, that's not enough time. I said, we got to go 5 days. He goes, no, we can't afford 5 days because with training's too good in Colorado. I said, this isn't about the training, it's about the race. You can't go that short a period of time in the winter months where you have issues, right? Sometimes with travel. No, I lost the argument because I'm not the head coach. So we fly to Boston, and what do you have? A blizzard. So we get delayed by weather. And by the time we ended up in Levy, it was the night before the race. And she was hammered. This is a race she's won now, I think. By now, I think it's 8 or 9 times. And but she was hammered. And then the other 2 girls that were with us were hammered as well. And nobody performed. I think it was the worst race she has had in that event, the slalom event, since she's been skiing. And I think she was 7th or something like that. And she was really upset about it. And her parents were upset about it. And I said, you just don't have enough time you can't, your body can't catch up, and you have a high performance level And of course, for her, being the best ski racer in the world, she's a highly paid athlete. Okay. That that losing that race and not ending up on the podium probably cost her six figures.
It's significant. So
Significant.
you're saying we need to listen to the energy and the patterns that we need to perform well.
If you knew the numbers, and I wish I had them in front of me right now, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars that are lost due to a lack of productivity from jet lag. They've done studies on this. It's staggering. So if you're a business executive and you're flying anywhere, whether it's to Asia, whether it's to Europe, Australia, it doesn't matter. If you're going to fly that distance and you're going to go into the boardroom the next day, you're not going to be at 100%. I will guarantee it. It's not possible unless you plan ahead, use this. Even if you were in the boardroom and you use this every 2 hours, you're going to be way ahead of everybody else.
That's the thing. Do the things to get ahead. And we talked about doing the hard things. We can use what's available to step up.
Yeah. You can drink yourself, you can drink like a fish with coffee and energy drinks in the boardroom, but you're gonna crash big time and then you're not worthwhile the next day. These stuff like this is so simple. Okay. It's so easy to use and it's affordable and it fits in a little pouch that you can, you know, throw in your purse, your backpack, your pocket. It doesn't matter. And here's the kicker, Melanie. The sad lamp business globally is 500 to 600 million dollars a year, and it's growing at 6 to 8%, which tells you that people are struggling with whether it's jet lag or it's long working hours or night shift or just a winter depression. Okay, that's how big the market is. And yet, this is the modern day answer. You
People
know,
don't know. And they
that
want it, they need it. So
that's
when I when I mention to people, and we'll wind up, it's been an hour and a half, and I don't normally do podcasts for hours on end, but it's like there's so much to talk about. We almost need a fourth and fifth episode. But um, when I mention light therapy, people assume that I mean those. Do you know those masks? I don't even know what people do with them. The mask you put over your face. People assume it's that. And so a few times lately, I've pulled out my device and I'm showing people it's literally just this little thing. People don't realize, yes, that there's a solution. And
it's the perfect solution. I mean, it's like going back and saying to your car dealer, "Oh, I'm buying a new car, but can you wire a phone in for me?" You know, where the phones used to be in the center console and it had a cord, and or going. Remember the Motorola brick, right? You had this this big brick phone. You know, it's like, wait a minute. That's like buying a sad lamp. No, you buy the modern day version of this. It's so simple. It's now, and of course the sad lamp market has grown, right? Because they're coming out with, oh, you can do it on your iPhone or you can do it on a little thing like this that doesn't have enough power to have any effect on you at all. It's a scam. Simple. Yeah, it's crazy. And people are always willing or wanting to save a buck here and a buck there, but at the end of the day, of all the things I've seen in my lifetime, it's probably one of the more remarkable things because it's so effective and it's so efficient to use. And it's just it's and thanks to you to doing podcasts like this, hopefully we can spread the word and yeah, yeah, yeah. You're welcome. That's the key. You get, I don't know, for me, you get to this point in life and just giving back so that people can understand how to live a healthier life is so important to me. It's not obviously I'm selling a product, but I get hit up by a lot of AI marketers and they're like, oh, we can kill it. It's not a matter of just money. This is about somebody's well-being. and there's so many bad things out there. You've got to have something good that can really have an impact for sure. That's key. Thank you very much, Melanie. It was a pleasure.